Oh, okay.
For authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me tonight is going to be Georgia Love. She's a returning guest. And her book is Escape from Manhattan. And she's got an interesting storyline in there about a woman who is working in, I think if I remember correctly, a restaurant or is visiting a restaurant and overhears a conversation that deals with crime. Ends up going to work with the people in the nursing home where this is going to be going on at. And from there, it kind of escalates as she learns more over the time that she is there and begins to find out that there's a whole big global conspiracy going on. And this leads into a lot of the issues that are being dealt with today, you know, about, conspiracy theories of one form or another. But I would rather, instead of giving details out about that, let her kind of decide how she wants to go with that. So, Georgia, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing really good, and I love doing your shows. I really do. The last time we did a show, I met a wonderful person from Australia, and it seems that, around the world, people hear your show from all over the world.
Oh, you've heard about that?
Yes, like this gent was from Australia, and we've corresponded now by email. Wonderful man, and loved my book, and gave me so much encouragement, because it's slow here in Canada to get this book out there. But then I don't feel bad, because the wonderful man Richard Gage, that has right now going across Canada and talking in every major city across Canada, is having a very hard time getting his message out too. And his book is Rethink 9/11, and his talk is Rethink 9/11, right?
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed his talk and his information, and I came across Dr. Judy Wood's book on Where Did the Towers Go? And that book is just amazing. My book is more, I don't have the same pictures and science in it that Judy Woods has. Mine was more a book starting to make people realize that this was going to happen, and it was known in certain circles around the States and even in Canada months before it took place. And it was done to get it was engineered by a small group of people that wanted this to happen and wanted us all to think that it was the Middle East that did it. Well, those planes did crash into those two towers, but the fuel was burnt up in the first 10 minutes. And the weapon that was used after that was not the fuel that destructed those towers. I mean, 2.4 million tons of material evaporated, were dustified, and 3,000 people were dustified. That is, they just dematerialized. They turned into dust. Poof. And it's a horrible thing to say, poof, but my God, if that's what it takes to get people to realize that this was nothing normal. This was the weirdest thing that's happened in our world, other than the Philadelphia experience during the Second World War. That was, and these are the kind of things that I bring into the book, like the Philadelphia experience was one of the cargo ships that were dematerialized and then brought back in, because the U.S. military were wanting to find a way to have ships, ghost ships, so to speak, so that the jerry boats couldn't bomb them, and they tried. And they've been playing with this whole science since the 30s, since Nikola Tesla invented all of his theories and inventions. They've just been working with it for nearly 100 years, so you can imagine
right.
where they're at with it right now. Yeah, a long time, and they have perfected it.
Now, if I remember correctly from the last time you was on my show when we talked about this, in the book, and I read the book, Originally, it showed that you, the main character picked this information up, overhearing it inside the restaurant and taped the conversation. But when I talked to you in real life, you said that you had gotten this information from the spirit world. The other was, for storyline purposes. Is that correct?
No, the little of both. This cocktail waitress in Gas and Oil cocktail lounge in Calgary had heard the conversation and had the chance to record it on an audio cassette, and was able to offer this to the U.S. authorities. And so it was real. But since listening to Richard Gage in Rethink 9/11, many people were aware about the planes coming to crash into the towers. Were aware that something wasn't right that was going on with 9/11, and the authorities had been warned many times. If anybody gets a chance to go on the YouTube and get Rethink 9/11 and join the cause to have people, there's a real push now to have people reassess what happened 14 years ago.
Have it investigated again?
Oh, God, yes, and by an outside authority that would really come to some conclusions that could help all of mankind. Because the people that put this together, it was such a horrendous, unthinkable act that when it happened 14 years ago, people were just not ready to face it. I think this is what has taken 14 years for people to actually come to grips with this. If you go on YouTube and look up Dr. Judy Wood's information and the pictures that she's collected from FEMA and from all over to get this information to people, to make them realize that years after this event, they were still trucking dirt in and dirt out, like taking dirt out and replacing it with fresh dirt because it was still putting off fumes. It was still smoking. And they couldn't proceed with the making it into a place that it is now without getting rid of that dirt because it was just continuing. The fires, whatever was going on there, was the strangest thing that we have experienced. Now, my book is somewhat fiction, and I would say about 95% real with a bit of fiction added. The science, I had been researching Tesla for some time, but I came across a book called HARP by Jerry E. Smith, and his science is very real, and he channeled or helped me realize and get down onto paper a portion of that, the scientific part, that after, I don't know if you've ever heard of automatic writing.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, well, he helped me to get the information down that was scientific. Not all of it, but some of it, to make me realize, my God, this is real science. This has really happened. And I can see why they wanted, I feel that he was murdered by the same people that did this 9/11, because they can target people. They can cause cancer or heart attacks. And for him to die at 54 very quickly with pancreatic cancer can't help but make me wonder, like, they wanted him out of the way. They wanted him gone.
Yeah, and I'd interviewed him, I would say within a year of the time before he passed away. And at that time, he sounded pretty healthy to me. And, me and him were talking about his book, The Spear of Destiny, in that particular interview. But I knew that he had also been involved in HARP.
HARP, yes. We got to make clear, HARP is High Frequency Active Oral Research Program. And Dr. Richard, am I saying it? Begish, if I got the right name, has been talking about this in Alaska going on since the 80s, 1980. And it started with the University of Alaska. And back then, they were using 100 railroad cars, so 100 of these railroad cargo cars full of coal a day to keep this HARP going, to fuel the furnace or whatever, the invention of HARP there. And that was 100 carloads a day of coal.
Now, if I remember correctly, you also mentioned the HARP project in your book, didn't you?
Yes, it certainly do all the way through. Yeah.
And it was part of the things that's going on in the world today. It was part of the problem. It's being used for selfish purposes.
I believe, yes. I believe that they're using resonance. I believe it was resonance, microwave laser energy that brought down those towers. And that's why people, when they were calling 911, they were talking about how hot they were. I literally believe that they were being microwaved to death. And there were more than 1,000 people that jumped from the buildings, those two towers, and they were stripping their clothes off because they were hot from the inside. And they would go splat on the ground, and even then they would start to disappear. In fact, there are some pictures that Judy Woods has offered in her book that show them evaporating in midair, that they were so hot that they just disappeared, just like Star Trek. You know, they just vanished. Fumes, that's it. And the fact that in 14 years later, you know, if our government officials were honest at all, they would want to be talking about this. We've gone through the sadness, we've gone through, and it's time now to really look at what happened. And none of them want to. And I'd like to know why.
Well,
you know,
I'm sorry, didn't mean to talk over you.
Really. Yeah, it's insane, really, that they don't want to talk about this. My concern is whoever did this will do it again, and I'm concerned that they're going to do it to the New York Stock Exchange. Then the U.S. government can politely declare bankruptcy and put the whole world into a depression. And that's why I keep blabbing on here as much as I can and saying, look, it's got to stop because it's going to happen again. And, you know, we all know what's going on the worldwide financially, and it's pretty grim. And this would be such a neat way for them to just bow out honorably and be able to, you know, blame an outside source for their problems, just like they did, and our civil liberties. All that they want, they got the war in the Middle East going, they've got the oil and gas, and now what's next? And the fact that none of these elected officials will look at it, will even consider talking about it. Like our newspaper here in this little town that I live in would not run the story that this man was coming and doing Canada-wide tour. They would not come and to the event and take a story for the newspapers or the radio or the TV here. They refuse to have anything to do with this wonderful engineer, even though he's backed by 2,500 architects and engineers. This is not Santa Claus. This is a man of education who knew what he was talking about, still knows what he's talking about, and they wanted nothing to do with him. In fact, we couldn't even keep the flyers up in the town to advertise. So out of a town of 80,000, 90,000 surrounding area, 70 people showed up for the event. That's, like, it's criminal.
Yeah.
In my mind, 70 people out of 90,000 took the time to take 2 hours to come and hear this man talk about what happened in 9/11.
Now, you talked about Judy Woods, and she believed this was a sound device
Yes.
as well. But she differs from you. You seem to think it was art that was the device. She thought there was something closer range.
I think that Nikola Tesla, and I write about it in my book, developed a smaller type of harp that could be used right from a phone booth, and they could target that energy. And you know the thing that really amazed me? I saw a video when I first started researching all of this from the river, the Hudson's River, where the helicopters were circling these towers. And I kept saying, where the hell are the rescue ladders? Why aren't they helping these people that are ready to jump with the rescue ladders? Where are they? There were no rescue ladders. They circled around, and before you knew it, and that was on the mechanical floors. And the next thing you know, it was starting to be the fumes coming out and the black smoke and just the great powder, like this energy pulverized, just turned everything to dust.
Yeah, and they kind of showed that in the videos they had on the news as well.
And you know what I find so interesting? 1,400 vehicles burst into flames spontaneously.
I think Judy noticed that.
Yes, okay. 1,400 fire engines, the motor and all of that in the front of the fire engine. Many of them just totally gone, missing. Like they weren't there. The fire engine wasn't there. The whole thing, rest of it was there. Sometimes the inside of the vehicle was burned and the outside was fine. There's one
kind of like
where
it demolecularized right before your eyes.
Oh, just
instantaneously.
Crazy. And I keep thinking, being a spiritualist, I keep thinking, what could have caused that? Okay, I know that when I go into spirit, I have ability for at least a small amount of time, if not more, to do things electrically, to do things resonantly. That's how ghosts work, right? If you study the paranormal, I mean, I've seen electrical things that ghosts have done. I've seen my radio, the handle on it, like the turn knob, move on its own and take that channel right to where the spirit wanted me to listen to the show, right? I've watched it happen. I've seen my kitchen stove, electrical stove, all of a sudden burst into flame when I lived in Victoria, BC, when I had a little TR6, which is a very electrical car. It has electronic problems all the time, with its RPM needle just about go off the screen after going through some parts of Victoria, BC. So I know ghosts have that ability. And I'm just wondering, okay, I've just been dustified. I'm no longer human, but could I go to my vehicle? And when I go to my vehicle and I'm sitting in my vehicle and I go to turn on my car with the key, it all of a sudden bursts into flames because it's an electronic car. It's got a computer, whatever. And there were computer cars by that point, especially in that area because they were wealthy if they were parking there and working in the towers. Was it enough to turn those cars into flames? Like I'm searching for answers, and I can't understand why the government officials and our elected leaders, president, premiers, and prime ministers aren't all just as curious as I am. Like, what happened? We cried our tears. This is 14 years later. What the hell happened? Who did this? Why did they do it? How did they do it? Those questions should be keeping these elected officials awake all night long. If it's keeping me and I'm a little old lady in northern BC awake all night long, Jesus, don't you think some intelligent people should be racking their brain all night long too and saying what happened and wanting to do something about it?
Evidently there are, because there's
again.
movies and books galore out, so there are people that are doing just that.
But not the people that can really get to the answers.
I didn't say it was the right people. I said people.
Yeah, the ones that, I'm sorry, but the ones where it would really make a big difference. Well, instead they're quieting. They're making it so our newspapers can't talk about it. Our radio programs up in northern Canada, we're not allowed to talk about it.
About 911?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's, the bookstores won't carry the books. The bookstores here won't carry my books. Okay. Because it must be a damn good book then. But you know what is crazy? eBay has my book through a company called Grand Eagle on eBay, and they're selling it for $26 there. And I can't put my book on there because Grand Eagle Retail is an established company with eBay, and eBay has just literally told me to go to hell because it doesn't matter that I'm the author, that I have the copyright things. I'm a nobody because I'm not even recognized. I'm not American for starters. And the same thing with Amazon. It's amazing. I know my Canadian friends have bought my book. They've gotten thank you cards from Amazon, but yet it doesn't show anywhere in Amazon or Create Space where it's being printed from and sent from, right? Because Create Space is one of the printing portions of Amazon. There's no sales. But yet my friends have got the book and they've got thank you letters.
Sounds to me like what it is it's something's happening in your Canadian end that people aren't wanting you to make money off from it in the form of discouraging you from continuing to put it out.
Exactly. For me to just give up. Well,
it doesn't mean Amazon's ripping you off necessarily. They could be freezing the money coming in at some point.
Well, they're doing something. I'm telling you, something very weird is happening. That this book, even though I'm advertising literally every Canadian citizen across Canada with Craigslist, with used Prince George, used Vancouver, used Victoria, used Halifax, not a call, not an email from any of this.
But here in America, it's selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing any money. I'm not seeing any royalties. So somewhere, something is just shutting it down. So I don't know. The average person would just give up. But, you know.
What you could do is move to America.
Don't tempt me. Some fellow down there likes tiny little cute red-haired girls with crazy senses of humor. Geez, you just, email me at lovenow@telus.net, and by God, I might just do that. I've got to get this book out there. It's just because it's a human interest book. I'm explaining and telling the story from a human being who found out about this, a young girl in her early 20s that finds out about this horrible event that's going to happen, and how her struggle to have her people in Manhattan understand what's coming. And not one of her people were in those towers when it happened. They were not there. But you know, the other thing that is so weird is that the World Trade Center number 7 went up, was demolished, and so were 2 other ones had to be demolished. And all you ever hear about is the towers. Why is that? I mean, there was a lot. That whole World Trade Center virtually was destroyed by this event.
So what buildings didn't actually go down when the planes hit were actually weakened to the point they had to be destroyed by us?
Yes. But World Trade Center 7, this is what, it's a whole documentary by this Richard Gage, which architects and engineers have put together to say, okay, this is what happened, right? And it's part of this event. And I believe a Mr. Silverman put $1 billion worth of insurance, and especially for a terrorist act, on the World Trade Center buildings. I don't know. You'd have to go into Dr. Judy Wood's book or her information on YouTube, because I don't have access. I'm a Canadian way up here, right? She has access to all this, and her book is so vital. My book was written for people who just wanted to start to learn what's going on.
Intermediate.
It was made especially for women 40 and over who don't even have time to read a book, let alone understand what's going on in the computer, understand a computer. I wanted to bring the information to them so that they could talk to their people and have some knowledge of what took place and why.
Now, the question I got is, does anybody have any video or anything that was actually taped while it was happening of these cars just vanishing into thin air?
Well, there's lots of pictures. I don't know if anybody's got a video. I wouldn't think so, because the heat would have driven them away. I don't think they could get close enough, from what I've been able to research and study, that the heat was incredible. That the bridge going into Manhattan was so hot that they couldn't even, it was all they could do to get in and out on that bridge.
So it would be kind of hard to irrefutably prove that was happening, even if it was true.
The pictures are there. There's all kinds of pictures. Yeah, but
the pictures they could say were like before and after somebody could have moved the cars. No, that's not to say that happened, but people will say all kinds of things when they're covering up.
Oh, yeah. Well, a whole parking lot. 1,400 vehicles, and blocks away from the towers.
Really?
Blocks away from the World Trade Center, burst into flames spontaneously. So that's why I keep thinking. And vehicles were turned over.
Cars bursting into.
Well, yeah, how they were burnt. Some of the front parts were burnt. There's a police car where the driver's side back, where there's a shiny spot, as if something had laid against that to protect it from being burnt. I mean, it is just very weird. Some of the paint still remembers, some of the signage on the vehicle, but everything else is burnt, but not the signage. The trees, the foliage were kept intact. The paper, there was in some areas 2 feet of paper from the offices.
Wow. Well,
Would it burn?
Judy Woods and you both believe there was a sound device, and I'm assuming that residents from a sound device can microwave, and if this is correct, me and you just this morning earlier were talking about the fact that how the plane hit in the building, even if it's true, you got a video of it, and you know it happened, could not have caused it to implode. It had to have help. Like a weakening of a foundation. So if this resonance device actually put out this kind of heat that it melted the infrastructure, then that would weaken it and it could implode.
That's exactly what happened. Because the bathtub, the wall was not damaged. There's a retaining wall to keep the Hudson River from coming and flooding New York and Manhattan. That structure was not damaged. If that, 1.2 million tons of material were in each tower. So altogether 2.4 million tons of material was vaporized, was just, dustified. It was just dust. And the thing is, when you microwave a cup of chili, say you get it in one of those cups, the cardboard doesn't disintegrate, right? Your chili gets hot, so it's at a certain temperature. But the paper on that cup stays the same. Correct?
Right.
And the same thing, all those papers, it was 2 feet deep of paper on the ground, and it was not burning when the vehicle's right on top of it and right beside it.
So by doing this, they're melting the steel beams, but not damaging the bricks.
Well, the concrete was pulverized too.
Wow.
The concrete was dustified, evaporated, right?
Okay.
And a lot of the steel, they had molten rivers of steel, weeks still running as they were trying to clean up. And I mean, why isn't all this information
about
as common
that?
as...
Some people thought that was thermite that did that. So it could have been thermite or they could have been used in conjunction.
God only knows. God only knows. There needs to be an investigation on that. I know that I'm sitting back here with this HARP and understanding what's going on with HARP because billion watts of laser energy are causing tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, extreme weather. Right now, there's a blizzard going on in Newfoundland because they're using this billion watts of laser energy to melt the Arctic. They want an open ocean above northern Canada so they can ship the ore. That they've just opened this mine 3 years ago tops, at Frobisher Bay, which is ahead of Hudson's Bay, and they want to get this ore to China year-round. And they're making a year-round open ocean above Canada, northern Canada, with HARP, billion watts of laser energy doing this. And our scientists and our media have gag orders where they are not allowed to talk about this. Seriously. And right now, Newfoundland, because it's close to this Hudson's Bay, it is just being inundated with another blizzard. I don't know how many blizzards Newfoundland has had this winter. I don't know how any of their electrical poles are standing, how they're getting any electrical energy, whatever. And it's all hush-hushed because our media is totally controlled by our Prime Minister. He is the head one of the CBC. He is the head person. Trudeau, our Prime Minister Trudeau, made this happen years and years ago when he was in power. When they had this, so many years ago, I can't even remember, I think it was in the 60s. He put the War Measures Act in, and he put in the fact that the Prime Minister would also be the main person that controlled the airwaves and the media. This is going back to 1960s.
Yeah, and it's still going on today.
Yeah.
But that's been happening not only in Canada, but here in America, in the UK, and almost everywhere. There's nowhere you can find media that, doesn't have to watch what it puts out on the air.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that it's so important. I think we only have a little time to get as much freedom of the speech out there as we can with shows like you have. I don't know how long, and people really have to wake up to the real situation that we're in, that freedom of mind, freedom of thought is disappearing quickly, and we need to really, become aware of this fact.
Well, have you ever heard of the Illuminati?
Yes.
Well,
there's another man I'm hoping you're going to get to interview, and he's doing Unearth America, and his name is Scott Walter. Have you had him on your show yet?
Not yet. Never heard of him until now.
Oh, really? Okay, go and search on the YouTube, America Unearthed. One of the last sessions, he does an hour show, and he shows pyramids that are in the States. It's just amazing. And his last show, he talks about the Knights of the Golden Circle. And this is going back to when, I believe, one of your presidents were killed, shot by Booth, wasn't it? Am I getting
Reagan?
No. This is going way back before
Kennedy,
that. Yeah, he was the same group of people, only they now probably have another term for it. But it was the president that freed the slaves. He was shot. What the heck is his name? I'm so sorry.
Okay, Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, he was shot by, wasn't it Booth?
I think so, in the theater.
Yes. And he was one of and this man, Scott Walter, brings out all this information that he wasn't, this Booth wasn't acting alone. He was one of the members of the early Ku Klux Klan, and I believe it was called Knights of the Golden Circle. Have you ever heard that term?
No, I haven't, but if this is accurate information, it would explain why he was assassinated, because he was freeing the slaves.
Oh, yeah. This whole show, it's on you. I'm sure it's on YouTube, or you can get it on one of your TV. And he does a weekly. Isn't that interesting? We can get him in Canada, and I wonder if you people can get him in the States.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. I can do interviews of people in 40 different countries around the world.
Oh, wow. Okay. He would be a very interesting man, because he's showing way back till that time that this group of people back then were controlling. And yes, they probably were a part of the Illuminati, because I believe the Illuminati go back thousands of years.
Actually, they, under a different name, probably go back to the Tower of Babel.
Oh, my God.
But they've had different names for different segments of their organization. The Catholic Church, the Protestant movement, the Freemasons, they all, they're part of the Illuminati. It's like sister religions, for example. If you don't like the Catholic, come see our Pentecostals. You're still putting in the offering place that come to us.
Yes, anything to control the masses. The sheeple. It's just so sad that they are doing this. And then Dr. Bigish from Alaska, who's been researching HAARP for, I guess, now close to 40 years, this dear man talks about this, how we are so controlled even with mind control. And I don't know if you've had him on your show, because he's written a book, Angels Don't Play That Harp.
Oh, no, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah,
you're going to have to email me some of this information so I can't forget it.
Okay, I will. Yes, it's Dr. Begish, and he talks about angels don't play this harp. It's a book like that, or Angels Don't Play This Harp. I might have it a little bit wrong. I don't know, but it's an incredible book, how HAARP is doing all of these things that I'm talking about. There are a lot of good people that are saying the same thing that I'm saying. Resonance. As I said again, the Philadelphia experiment during the Second World War was one of the first times that they used this HAARP, resonance energy, to, and what happened is the sailors, when they rematerialized the ship, were caught in parts of you would have an engine stuck in between the ribs and the heart or whatever, or an arm and a leg, be part of the engines, the material on the ship, and they had to bomb it and pretend that the German U-boat had got this ship. And it was called the Philadelphia Experiment.
Well, as long as we're recommending...
back to the 40s and 30s, is that they've been playing with this in energy resonance.
As long as we're recommending books while we're at it, Georgia, there's a guy I just stumbled upon on Amazon yesterday. I browse through their books ever so often, looking for guests, actually. But this guy, have you ever heard of Adam Weishaupt?
Nope.
He was, in 1776, the Jesuit priest that founded the Illuminati here in Europe, not here, I mean.
Yeah.
I ask you this because this man's name, and bear in mind, he was the webmaster and owner of the Illuminati Watcher website. And his name just happens to be Isaac Weishaupt. Huh. I couldn't help but wonder if there was a relation between him and Adam, a descendancy of sorts.
Of course.
But he's got a book out called The Grand Unified Conspiracy Theory, The Illuminati, Ancient Aliens, and Pop Culture. I haven't got a chance to read it. I read the description. It's very in-depth. It covers almost every facet you could imagine, covering thousands of years. From the description, you can see this.
Wow.
If you ever get a chance to look that up, you might want to look into it. It might add to your database of information.
Well, look, I want to get hold of Dr. Judy Wood, and I'd like to be the Canadian person to help her do a tour across Canada in all the cities across Canada, because I so feel that her information is so much more complete and real, than what I saw with this gentleman that came for the 9/11, Rethink 9/11. But I can see why he would have to come first, because a lot of discussion has to take place, and you've got to start at a base level of architects and engineers, showing the World Trade Center Building 7 and how it went down in comparison to how the towers went down. Because it wasn't dematerialized. They had to take away loads of concrete and steel. It was not done the same way as the World Trade Center, the towers.
That's
and
interesting.
The difference is so incredible. But both Judy Woods and myself are coming out and saying it was resonance that brought down those buildings. Those poor people. She's got a telephone conversation of one of the victims in that tower that talks about being on fire from the inside. She's so hot she can't breathe. She's taking off her clothes to try and get cooled down, and she's seeing people being burned up in front of her that are dematerializing. And that is why more than 1,000 people jumped from the towers. They wanted to get away from this incredible heat. And as they were jumping, they were taking off their socks, their shoes, their pants, and they weren't trying to do a striptease, for God's sakes. They just wanted to cool off, and they were falling at this speed, right? And they were splat on the ground. And when they splat on the ground, which is very weird, there should have been, maybe their leg fell off or got knocked off in the fall. You know what I mean? But to go splat and then disappear because the fumes, like they were so hot, they just evaporated. There were no bodies to clean up. And why the firemen and the different first responders, some of them come forward, yes, but they should be, there should be rallies. There should be protests as to what happened. Enough tears. 14 years is enough time to cry. Now let's get down and see what the hell happened.
Let's get down and dirty.
It's time. Those people deserve it. Those 3,000 people deserve that to happen. That they're not, they're never going to rest at peace until it does happen. Building a fancy monument and inscribing their names on a monument means nothing to them. They want answers. And those 3,000 people in spirit, they know by now that they're dead. I think in the first little while it was such a shock to their system they didn't even realize they were dead. I would say that I think they're the ones that they got in their cars, they didn't have a physical key, but I don't think they realized they were dead yet. And I think they turned over whatever, and it burst into flames. The computer, whatever, ignited spontaneously. Because you know what? There were also vehicles turned upside down. That would have taken 2 or 3 people. I don't know. How much energy do we have when we pass over? Apparently there's enough brain energy to light New York City for 24 hours. I've read that. There's that much electrical energy in us when we go over in spirit.
I never heard of that, but wow.
You know, we are powerful in spirit. And I think this is one of the things that so many of the modern religions want you to believe, that when you die, that's it, that you have nothing. You're just meat computer, that's it. And I'm just screaming from the mountaintops, no, you're a divine being, you're an electrical being, you have power when you go over. I mean, if there's one person dying at this time, whatever, out there that's hearing this, by God, you've got power. Go and destroy those harp instruments. Go and do something. In the spirit form, you are capable of doing that. You're not a meat computer, and I think this is why there's been so many religions created in the last 100 years. Like, okay, the Jehovah Witnesses, they want you to think that you're just a meat computer. You know, until Armageddon happens and you're resurrected or whatever, you have no power. Right? And I'm thinking, what? Why would a religion want to teach that? You know, and I talked to a lady yesterday. I was shopping, and I said, you know, back in the past, we used to spend a day a month where we would go and honor, at least an afternoon or a morning, where we would go to the cemetery and we would sit in reverence and talk to our passed over loved ones at a cemetery. We would have a little tiny picnic basket or whatever. We would go and talk to Grandma and Grandpa, tell them how much we miss them, take flowers, tend to their grave, and celebrate their life and connect with them. And that doesn't happen anymore. People don't believe anymore that they can talk to the people.
Are you still there? Uh-oh, I think I lost her. She shows to be on, but she got quiet all of a sudden. She might have pushed the wrong button. Well, I just lost her. Let me try to get her back. So far, nothing. I don't even hear it ringing. I'm not sure what's going on with this. Folks, I hope y'all can come see me tomorrow at www.freedomslips.com. I'll be talking to Carl O. Helvey, and he's going to talk about how you can beat lung cancer. We're still waiting for this line to light up. Or to answer, should I say. And looking a little further, there it goes.
Hello there.
Yeah, we lost you.
Sorry about that. And we were really talking about something important, where if people would go and talk to their relatives at that cenotaph or memorial, whatever it is there in New York, and talk to them, say, look, we need help. We're sorry this happened to you, but can you please, in spirit world, make the difference? And you know what? I think we will start to see a turnaround.
Okay.
And that's what my book talks about. It shows many, many places where spirit world intervenes and helps these people escape from Manhattan, escape from the terrorists that wanted to kill them. It shows many places where the incredible miracles that help them just survive what they knew and to get into a safe place. And I think that's what I'm trying to help people understand, that there are answers, and it's going to come from spirit world, because the controls that are being put on us more and more every day, it's going to take that.
Now, do you have contact with Judy Woods?
Not yet, and I'm hoping that you're going to be able to give her my phone number, or, email me and give me her phone number. I'm going to ask you to contact me at lovenow@telus.net, Because at this point in time, I'm thinking, okay, georgialoveauthor@gmail.com, I'm not getting the emails. Is there a reason why I'm not? So I'm asking them. Love Now is a really easy thing to remember, and it's at TELUS, TELUS.net. Maybe I can get the emails from there if they blocked me from my georgialoveauthor@gmail.com.
Okay.
And go and look at my website. It's www.escapefrommanhattan.com, all one word, small letters, and see my website, because when you see it, you will recognize how serious a person I am. Like, I'm putting my life on the line to get that book out there, and I don't doubt it for a second.
Now, have you ever heard of Andrew Johnson?
Come again?
Have you ever heard of Andrew Johnson?
No.
Okay, he happens to be a friend of hers. His website is Check the Evidence, if I remember correctly.
Uh-huh.
And him and her have worked together on this 911 conspiracy theory of theirs. And you might want to talk to him as well.
Okay, I'm going to get you to email that to me so that I, get the right one, and that if you don't mind, or after the show, just so I have time to write it down. I don't want to take the time now to be writing stuff down, but there's got to be a way to get. I think that this Rethink 9/11 is a wonderful thing because it's getting people to think and talk. And I would love to see Dr. Judy Wood or this Johnson fellow come through across Canada, city to city, and I would do everything in my power to help that happen. I am familiar with a lot of Canadian. I've worked in the hotel industry, and I do know how to put a tour together to make that happen.
Okay, that's good. So you know how to raise the funding for the building and anything else you need as well. Well,
I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to work as much as I can to see her come across Canada city to city. And I think that this Rethink 9/11 has opened the door to make that happen.
That's very possible. Now, I know that Michael Tellinger wanted to do a thing here in Houston, and when I went looking for a building, it was like $150 for 3 hours, and I'm like, I'm not on disability. I just can't do it.
Well, it's the cost here. To come to where I live here in Prince George, they spent at least $1,500 to rent a space because they figured that many people would be coming out. They made a grand issue out of it, a grand effort, right? And 70 people showed up. But this woman that's putting Rethink 9/11, she has all the unions across Canada backing this. I don't have the union power, but I still think that it's possible to do it city to city because the interest will have been triggered by this person doing the Rethink 9/11 tour. People are starting to wake up. It's taking time because they don't want to believe this. They really don't. To think that a government faction, a cabal in the United States or in the world would put together such a horrific plan, they really don't want to believe it. It seems even 14 years later just too harsh. But my feelings are if they get away with this, and they're in so much more position of power to be able to do that it will be the stock market exchange next. And I think that we've got to bring as much information and energy to this as we possibly can, that this is not going to go away, and we are at the mercy of these people doing it again.
Well, I might be able to be of some assistance to you. They're in Canada from here.
I know.
I happen to know a radio show host in Canada that may be willing to help you get the word out in Canada.
Well, that would be wonderful, because this HAARP melting the ocean, the Arctic Ocean above Canada, like we are no longer part of the Kyoto Accord, which is to police the environment of the world. We've pulled out of that. We're building warships at Vancouver and at Halifax, for God's sakes. Why? Because we now have to defend our northern border from Russia. I mean, this is very serious, especially with the situation with Russia right now and the States and, of course, our prime minister and your president. Like, it's really serious. They want 80% of the population gone, and I could see Canada being a war zone and you literally fighting over the future of the world and us being the battlefield. No,
Wow.
granted, it's going to be a bit difficult because we have winter 8 months a year here. So,
I'm glad I'm not there. My lungs couldn't take it.
you
But
know?
there's a man up there in Canada. He's the host of the conspiracy show there in Canada named Richard Syrett.
Okay.
And he has a
What
website.
city is he out of up here?
Oh, I don't remember. I haven't interviewed the man in a little over a year now.
Okay.
And try to bear in mind, I literally interview hundreds of people a year. It's hard to remember everything about everyone.
Exactly, of course. I just feel so honored that you interview me, and you've done it more than, well, quite a few times now. We can't quite talk about how many, but I'm really pleased because my book is a book you could hand to your females in your family who have never looked at any of this conspiracy stuff, because it is a human interest story, and it slowly guides them into this whole situation of 9/11 and filling in all the gaps of information that they need to be able to get this. It's a wonderful book for your grandmother, for your aunt, for any woman that is looking for answers as to what is going on in our world today.
Okay.
And they just don't have the time. And I mean, I even use the name Georgia Love in hopes that those girls out there that are reading Harlequin romances might pick it up and read it. Because there is a love story in it. There's a wedding in it. There's a lot of female kind of thing. I really moderate it so it isn't all gloom and doom. Like, it's a good book for just being interesting. There's so much paranormal information in there. So if you've got an open-minded aunt or grandmother that is curious about stuff, if she's curious about dowsing, for instance, which is water witching, curious about astrology or tarot cards or synchronicity, any of this stuff, they would dearly love this book.
Okay, real quick, because we're running down on the 8 o'clock hour soon. Do you have solutions to some of these problems in there as well?
I believe I do, because HAARP could be used to heal our planet. That kind of energy, it was invented by Nikola Tesla to heal our planet, to bring rain to the areas of the world where there isn't any rain, to moderate the weather, to calm hurricanes, to calm earthquakes. That technology can be used to heal our planet. It can even be used as our energy and fuel source. I mean, this book discusses this, how this can happen. That science was put together by wonderful people who wanted to heal mankind, even a healing blanket to absorb the radiation from being exposed to nuclear situations, right? Nikola Tesla invented the healing blanket, and the people in the book that I talk about brought it even farther. They kept on, working on his patents and his inventions.
After they plagiarized it.
Westinghouse bought 2,000 of his inventions. And in the book, I bring out all the information, well, not all, but a good portion of the information that Nikola Tesla offered us. And I don't know how else to tell you. It's just so much wonderful stuff in there. And some of it was channeled by Jerry E. Smith, who wrote the book HAARP, which is HAARP, and his information was very scientific and for nerds and for techies, right? This book is for women, human interest story that brings in this information. And I just can't tell you how disappointed I am that in Canada I can't seem to get this book going. Or if it is selling in Canada, I am not finding out about it because CreateSpace and Amazon Canada are not informing me that it's being sold. Although it is being sold by Barnes & Noble. But then it goes back, and this book is being provided by Create Space, which is Amazon. So again, I don't know. It's so hard. Like, I have to take their word as to how many books are sold. I have no way to verify if they're telling me the truth or not.
Well, I've had no reason to doubt that Amazon was an honest company until you, and that's why I think perhaps it ain't them. Maybe it's somewhere between you and them. A middle source, in other words.
Amazon. Who is in charge of Canada Amazon?
Okay, now Canada
Amazon
Amazon might be different than America Amazon.
Yeah, I don't know who owns that company. There's no way you can get any information. You can't talk on the phone to anybody with Amazon. So right there's no way to get a phone call through to anybody on Amazon, whether it's U.S. or Canada. The same thing with the books and Kindle. They've been selling my Kindle Escape from Manhattan for 4 years now. I don't have one sale. Amazon Kindle tells me Trafford will pay me, and Trafford tells me Amazon Kindle will pay me. But they've had the Kindle there for 4 years now. And I've done enough radio shows from Britain, from you in the States, from a couple in Canada, and absolutely no sales. I don't buy that. In the summer of the summer of 2010, right? I was searching, and I was on the first 10 pages of Google 8, 9, 10, 12 times, and it kept going to Trafford, the first publisher of my book, which I took them off 3 months after they started because they were not being honest with me. They kept wanting to put my book in with children's books ages 2 to 4. So when people were Googling it and it came up, Escape from Manhattan, it went to Trafford with books for children ages 2 to 4. So they just discounted it and thought the book was a joke.
Actually, though, you might be answering, you might have just found and not know you found it, where your problem's coming from. I mean, you said yourself Amazon said Trafford would pay you. What if Amazon is faithfully paying Trafford and Trafford ain't paying you? They're pretending they never got it. And I got a
check for $1.36 from Trafford in January. They had the gall to send me a check for $1.36.
No, I'm just saying about the rest of the money for the rest of the sales. Suppose they're the ones that's ripping you off and not Amazon.
Well, I would believe that, except I did the second edition, or the first edition, or revised edition, pardon me, and that's through Create Space, which is part of Amazon. I took Trafford totally off, and I asked Amazon to totally, to stop, and now Amazon does have Create Space, and it's a blue cover, but I'm just telling people, for God's sakes, if you want to support an author that's putting her life on the line to get this information out there, just email me, georgialoveauthor@gmail, or lovenow@telus.net, and I will send you the copy of the book. I will sign it. I will send you a gift, and I will also email you the PDF or the EPUB for free. So, I mean, I don't know any author that could be more generous than that.
Another thing you can do is you can repackage and rewrite your book, maybe add to it or whatever, change it a little, update it, and then package it under a new title and sell it straight off your website, and use a place like PayPal to get your payments, or a mailing address, and maybe just sell it and leave. Cut out all the middlemen, in other words.
Well, I have to get it printed. And getting it printed at this point is going through Create Space. This company, Grand Eagle Retail, has even started using Lightning Source to print my book, which they have no right to do. I never gave them permission. But eBay is okay with that. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is so weird. So weird that Lightning Source can deal with this Grand Eagle Retail and take my book. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be any copyright protection whatsoever on my book. And so I'm ready to, I don't know what to do. I wish there was a lawyer out there listening to this that would contact me and say, hey, gal, you've been fighting this for 4 years. Maybe it's time I show up and help you. I'm more than willing to give them 50% of whatever we earn, because really, Lightning Source, eBay, Amazon should be sued at this point with what they've done with my book.
Right.
Really. I mean, there's got to be one graduating lawyer out there that wants to make a name for themselves, that believes in Rethink 9/11 or whatever, that's going to say, you know, Georgia, you've really, you know, struggled for 4 years, never mind writing the book, all of that work, but the trying to market it, trying to get that book out there, and you're being stolen from left, right, and center. It's time we step up and help you. And, you know, and I'll give them 50% of whatever they earn. Okay. I think that's pretty generous.
Sounds pretty generous. And I was going to tell you, we just come up on 8 o'clock. Is there anything you wanted to, you know, kind of get in there that I didn't think to help get you get out on the board?
Well, if they would just go and look, escapefrommanhattan.com. It's a small website there. It explains so much. I've got pictures of giant icebergs that prove what I'm talking about up north in the Arctic. And I've got pictures now of a giant frozen wave that's 400 feet high that is off of Lake Huron. And only endothermic energy that HAARP puts out could create such a frozen wave right out of the lake. I mean, I can prove what the heck I'm talking about. This isn't fiction at all. This isn't science fiction. This is reality. And it's time we took these people and made them accountable for what they're doing to our planet. And it's going to take a real force. 9/11 is just the tip of the iceberg of what's really going on with this. And so I guess that's, you know, how serious it is. There's got to be serious people out there that would want to make this into a Hollywood movie or an international movie. I keep hoping that Steven Spielberg will hear about me, because this book is the kind of book he would want to make a movie of. It's that real.
There are people that do specialize in getting just exactly your kind of material out on the market, and sometimes in documentary format, they go out looking for this kind of material, in fact.
This would make the most wonderful movie, and it's got a positive ending, and that's what we need. We need that old kind of John Wayne, where there's the winner, the little guy wins. You know, it's time. It truly is time, and I feel so strong that those 3,000 souls that were microwaved to death, that if they would come forward and help me get this book into an international or Hollywood movie, because it is that kind of material.
Okay.
It would make an amazing movie, and it would wake everybody up right now in a good way. And it's so needed.
Well, okay. It sounds like tomorrow, the next day, you and me need to connect out of off the radio or behind the scenes, so to speak, and do a little information trading.
I really do think so. And thank you again for having me on your show.
And I want to thank you for coming. You're always a great guest, and quite sure I'm going to have you back again in the future. But for now, it's getting late, so I'm going to run out of anything else to call it, but call it quits.
Okay, well, blessings, take care of yourself, and thank you again for having me on.
Thank you very much. And folks, don't forget to come back and see me tomorrow at freedomslips.com. And don't forget that Georgia's website is www.escapefrommanhattan.com. And she's also a publisher and has a publishing website. You want to give them that real quick, Georgia?
Right now, I've had to shut that down for right now. I'll get it back up again. Sorry.
And then if y'all want to come back, wait a minute. Okay. I did not, I had a show scheduled for Saturday, folks. And then I found out that I had her scheduled for April the 12th as well, both of them being a Saturday. And I've talked to her, and we figured out that she is supposed to be in April, leaving me without a show this Saturday. I'm debating if I want to come on and do a solo show, or if I just want to skip the show Saturday. So y'all might want to check in Saturday, or maybe I can hopefully decide by tomorrow which one I'm going to do, and maybe post it and let y'all know. And other than that, next month we're going to start the month out with Nick Redfern and his latest book, For Nobody's Eyes Only. Until then, appreciate y'all checking in. If you didn't do nothing but listen, you still participated. And hey, I couldn't have a show without you anymore, and I could have one without the guests. Thank you for participating, and we'll hopefully see you on the next show. And y'all have a good night.
Book on Where Did the Towers Go? And that book is just amazing. My book is more, I don't have the same pictures and science in it that Judy Woods has. Mine was more a book starting to make people realize that this was going to happen, and it was known in certain circles around the States and even in Canada months before it took place. And it was done to get, it was engineered by a small group of people that wanted this to happen and wanted us all to think that it was the Middle East that did it. Well, those planes did crash into those two towers, but the fuel was burnt up in the first 10 minutes. And the weapon that was used after that was not the fuel that destructed those towers. I mean, 2.4 million tons of material evaporated, were dustified, and 3,000 people were dustified. That is, they just dematerialized. They turned into dust. Poof. And it's a horrible thing to say, poof, but my God, if that's what it takes to get people to realize that this was nothing normal. This was the weirdest thing that's happened in our world, other than the Philadelphia experience during the Second World War. That was, and these are the kind of things that I bring into the book, like the Philadelphia experience was one of the cargo ships that were dematerialized and then brought back in because the U.S. military were wanting to find a way to have ships, ghost ships, so to speak, so that the jerry boats couldn't bomb them, and they tried. And they've been playing with this whole science since the 30s, since Nikola Tesla invented all of his theories and inventions. They've just been working with it for nearly 100 years, so you can imagine
right.
where they're at with it right now. Yeah, a long time, and they have perfected it.
Now, if I remember correctly from the last time you was on my show when we talked about this, in the book, and I read the book.
Oh, okay.
For authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me tonight is going to be Georgia Love. She's a returning guest. And her book is Escape from Manhattan. And she's got an interesting storyline in there about a woman who is working in, I think if I remember correctly, a restaurant or is visiting a restaurant and overhears a conversation that deals with crime. Ends up going to work for the people in the nursing home where this is going to be going on at. And from there, it kind of escalates as she learns more over the time that she is there and begins to find out that there's a whole big global conspiracy going on. And this leads into a lot of the issues that are being dealt with today, about, conspiracy theories of one form or another. But I would rather, instead of giving details out about that, let her kind of decide how she wants to go with that. So, Georgia, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing really good, and I love doing your shows. I really do. The last time we did a show, I met a wonderful person from Australia, and it seems that, around the world, people hear your show from all over the world.
Oh, you've heard about that?
Yes, like this gent was from Australia, and we've corresponded now by email. Wonderful man, and loved my book, and, gave me so much encouragement. Because it's slow here in Canada to get this book out there. But then I don't feel bad because the wonderful man, Richard Gage, that has right now going across Canada and talking in every major city across Canada, is having a very hard time getting his message out too. And his book is Rethink 9/11, and his talk is Rethink 9/11, right?
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed his talk and his information, and I came across Judy Wood, Dr. Judy Woods.
Originally, it showed that you, the main character, picked this information up, overhearing it inside the restaurant and taped the conversation. But when I talked to you in real life, you said that you had gotten this information from the spirit world. The other was, for storyline purposes. Is that correct?
No, the little of both. This cocktail waitress in Gas and Oil cocktail lounge in Calgary had heard the conversation and had the chance to record it on an audio cassette, and was able to offer this to the U.S. authorities. And so it was real. But since listening to Richard Gage in Rethink 9/11, many people were aware about the planes coming to crash into the towers. Were aware that something wasn't right that was going on with 9/11, and the authorities had been warned many times. If anybody gets a chance to go on the YouTube and get Rethink 9/11 and join the cause to have people, there's a real push now to have people reassess what happened 14 years ago.
Have it investigated again?
Oh, God, yes, and by an outside authority that would really come to some conclusions that could help all of mankind. Because the people that put this together, it was such a horrendous, unthinkable act that when it happened 14 years ago, people were just not ready to face it. I think this is what has taken 14 years for people to actually come to grips with this. If you go on YouTube and look up Dr. Judy Wood's information and the pictures that she's collected from FEMA and from all over to get this information to people, to make them realize that years after this event, they were still trucking dirt in and dirt out, like taking dirt out and replacing it with fresh dirt because it was still putting off fumes. It was still smoking. And they couldn't proceed with the making it into a place that it is now without getting rid of that dirt because it was just continuing. The fires, whatever was going on there, was the strangest thing that we have experienced. Now, my book is somewhat fiction, and I would say about 95% real with a bit of fiction added. The science, I had been researching Tesla for some time, but I came across a book called Heart by Jerry E. Smith, and his science is very real, and he channeled or helped me realize and get down onto paper a portion of that scientific part that after, I don't know if you've ever heard of automatic writing.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, well, he helped me to get the information down that was scientific. Not all of it, but some of it, to make me realize, my God, this is real science. This has really happened. And I can see why they wanted, I feel that he was murdered by the same people that did this 9/11, because they can target people. They can cause cancer or heart attacks. And for him to die at 54 very quickly with pancreatic cancer can't help but make me wonder, like, they wanted him out of the way. They wanted him gone.
Yeah, and I'd interviewed him, I would say within a year of the time before he passed away. And at that time, he was He sounded pretty healthy to me, and, me and him were talking about his book, The Spear of Destiny, in that particular interview, but I knew that he had also been involved in HARP.
HARP, yes. We got to make clear, HARP is High Frequency Active Aural Research Program, and Dr. Richard, am I saying it, Begish, if I got the right name, has been talking about this in Alaska going on since the 80s, 1980, and it started with the University of Alaska. And back then, they were using 100 railroad cars, so 100 of these railroad cargo cars full of coal a day to keep this HARP going, to fuel the furnace or whatever, the invention of HARP there. And that was 100 carloads a day of coal.
Now, if I remember correctly, you also mentioned the HARP project in your book, didn't you?
Yes, I certainly do, all the way through it, yeah.
And it was part of the things that's going on in the world today. It was part of the problem. It's being used for selfish purposes.
I believe, yes. I believe that they're using resonance. I believe it was resonance, microwave laser energy that brought down those towers. And that's why people, when they were calling 911, they were talking about how hot they were. I literally believe that they were being microwaved to death. And there were more than 1,000 people that jumped from the buildings, those two towers, and they were stripping their clothes off because they were hot from the inside. And they would go splat on the ground, and even then they would start to disappear. In fact, there are some pictures that Judy Woods has offered in her book that show them evaporating in midair, that they were so hot that they just disappeared, just like Star Trek. They just vanished. Fumes, that's it. And the fact that 14 years later, if our government officials were honest at all, they would want to be talking about this. We've gone through the sadness, we've gone through, and it's time now to really look at what happened. And none of them want to. And I'd like to know why.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Really. Yeah, it's insane, really, that they don't want to talk about this. My concern is whoever did this will do it again, and I'm concerned that they're going to do it to the New York Stock Exchange. Then the U.S. government can politely declare bankruptcy and put the whole world into a depression. And that's why I keep blabbing on here as much as I can and saying, look, it's got to stop because it's going to happen again. And, we all know what's going on the worldwide financially, and it's pretty grim. And this would be such a neat way for them to just bow out honorably and be able to, blame an outside source for their problems, just like they did, and our civil liberties. All that they want, they got the war in the Middle East going